Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sonoma County CareerFest. Today, we are going to cover wine, hospitality, and tourism careers, or what is often referred to in Sonoma County as Sonoma Specialties. I am joined by my co-host who is behind the scenes right now, Stacy Fortin, West County High School and Laguna High. And I am Brandon Jewell of CTE Foundation, and I will be the host today. And our panelists, we have several panelists today, and I want to welcome all of you. Tracy Cook, who is the Administrative Program Manager at Sonoma County Tourism. Kirk Locke and Leanna Locke. Kirk is the owner and operator of the Fairfield Inn, Spaspool, and Quality Inn in Petaluma. And then Leanna is the front office manager at the Fairfield Inn in Spaspool. And then Jacob Perez is the marketing director of Mary's Pizza. And then last but certainly not least, Betsy Fisher, who is the SRJC instructor and Front House Operations Restaurant Management Program Coordinator. So welcome all, thank you. I know I just gave the titles, but really what I want to do in just a second is take a little bit deeper dive into each of those careers. But before we do, I do have a message for the students. Students, please feel free at any time to ask a question in the Q&A function in the chat. We're not going to get to it right away, and we probably won't get to all of the questions that you ask, but we do have Stacy Fortin monitoring that in the background, and at the end of the meeting, we are going to get to some of your questions. Okay. First, I'm going to go in order of my screen. I'm going to ask Tracy, could you please provide a very brief overview of what you do in your career, and as well as the education path that you took to get there?
Certainly. Thanks, Brandon. Hi, everybody. Really delighted to be here. I've been in Sonoma County for just over 30 years, so this is definitely considered my home, even though I wasn't born and raised here. And I've been in hospitality for well over 20, so the majority of that time that I've been in the workforce. I'll tell you a little bit later, it wasn't my original choice of career path in terms of what I went to school for, but it definitely, everything I studied and what led up to that really has lended itself for me to be successful in this portion of the industry. So I think the hospitality and tourism industry is full of opportunity. There's a lot of great networking, a lot of variety in terms of what's available, and certainly a lot of fun with the vast amount of people that you come in contact with. I've worked in restaurants as well as marketing and event planning, and was also a GM and guest services manager at a very small boutique hotel over the years. But currently I am with Sonoma County Tourism. As Brandon mentioned, I am the administrative program manager, which allows me to facilitate the communications between our board of directors and all of our committees that help function the organization and move towards certain goals. But I'm also the program manager for our new accredited hospitality professional program, otherwise known as AHP. This is a program where we focus on individuals like yourselves that are brand new, considering a career in the hospitality and tourism industry, or maybe you guys are just getting your first job, as well as it focuses on individuals that are already seasoned professionals in the hospitality and tourism industry. And we teach foundational classes about elements that are very unique and specific to Sonoma County as a destination. So having been a part of this industry for such a long time and seeing the tumultuous years that we've had in the last 5 to 7 years with fires and flood and pandemic, it's really nice to be a part of a program and an organization and a destination, for that matter, that really is helping everybody kind of rebound and seeing that life opens up. So I did, like I said, I went to JC here in Santa Rosa. That's actually how I came to Sonoma County. So great program there. And then I ventured off to San Luis Obispo, finished my bachelor's in business management and organizational design.
Great. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to hearing your perspective, because whereas we have individuals from particular parts of the industry, you're sort of kind of the umbrella, right? You can kind of represent the whole broad industry. So next on my screen, Jacob, could you give an overview of what you do in your career at Mary's Pizza and what path you took to get there?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacob Perez. I'm the marketing director for Mary's Pizza Shack. I actually started in Mary's Pizza Shack back in 2008. as a delivery driver for one of the restaurants and worked my way through various different parts of the restaurant. Eventually became an assistant manager at several different locations. And then I want to say a few years after that, I don't remember what year it was, but I became a general manager for Mary's and was a general manager for probably about 3 or 4 years at different locations being transferred to. And then back in 2015, I stepped into the marketing department as the catering sales manager. It was the first catering manager that Mary's had. I helped develop and refine the catering program for Mary's. That was actually at the same time that I went back to finish my education. I actually went really straight from high school into working, and this afforded me an opportunity to go back, get a degree in something that isn't really related to sales or marketing, but it was something that I was passionate about and was able to complete my education. And then back in, I'd say 2020, 2019, that's when I took over the department after I walked up the ladder, if you will, a few steps within marketing. And so I've been doing the marketing director role for our multiple locations across Sonoma and other counties since then, and really have had a chance to navigate the contours of the pandemic, as we all have, and really see the industry shift and try to adapt this brand that has been around. The restaurant's been around since 1959, and really working with the family that owns all of the locations to really try and adapt with these very rapidly changing times. And very fortunate to have been able to go up and really go through the ranks and grow up, if you will, through Mary's Pizza Shack. So that's my trajectory there. That's what I do. And I'm looking forward to this panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob. Betsy, do you mind talking about your path to the SOJC?
Not at all. Very happy to. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Betsy Fisher, and I'm happy to tell you that I have my dream job teaching in the culinary arts program at Santa Rosa Junior College. But this was not my original career path. I was a music major in college, piano and voice, and had hopes of becoming a high school music teacher. But my career path took an unexpected turn during my third year of college while I was working in a restaurant. It was a fancy place. It had a lot of white linens and beautiful and delicious foods, French wines, and classy cocktails. I loved learning about hospitality and tasting foods from other cultures. So I moved to California and immersed myself in our local world of food, wine, and tourism, as well as completed my degree at Santa Rosa Junior College. There were and still are so many ways to get involved, meet new people, and enjoy what we have called for years the bounty of Sonoma County. I started 2 small businesses in Santa Rosa that revolved around food, wine, and tourism, and I eventually found my way here to SRJC by luck when a teacher friend asked me to substitute in one of her culinary classes. Well, that did it for me. I've been teaching and coaching our culinary students towards their career paths here at the JC for 22 years, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, good. Thank you. Thank you, Betsy. Leanna, can you tell us about your path?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Leanna Locke, and I actually started, my first job was in Oakland, Chinatown in a nonprofit. It was helping Asian immigrants, and I was doing events for them. I was doing fundraising events. So I would do fundraising events at the Oracle. And then after that, I said, what would make me happy? What could I volunteer in that would make me happy? Because I started to get a little bit burnt out of that situation. And I decided to go into volunteering to help low-income students. It's an organization called To Be a Mentor. And so that's what got me into counseling. I was actually a school counselor in Oakland for a number of years, and I'd gone to graduate school to get there. I think all of the jobs that I've had has revolved around people, servicing people. So after after about 5 years in Oakland as a school counselor, I came back to work with my family in hospitality. I had worked also in events at UC Berkeley and fundraising there. So it's been an interesting mixture of the hospitality industry and kind of coming in and out, but also counseling. And so now I'm working with my family. Kirk is my uncle. And I'm at the Fairfield Inn in Sebastopol. I think a lot of the running themes for me there are people, how to create an environment or a situation to work with people, to make them happy, to create satisfaction. And so that was kind of my career trajectory. And so right now I'm the front office manager here at the Fairfield Inn in Sebastopol. And I'll let Kirk kind of go off that because we're in the same business here.
Well, perfect. Kirk, that is a perfect cue up for you. You're on mute there, Kirk.
As Leanne says, this is a family business, and we've been in this business since 1970. And so over the course of over 40 years, Leanne's father, who was the general contractor, built our hotels. So, we have in our family, we have our portfolio of 3 hotels, 1 in Arizona and 2 in Sonoma County. How I got to this actually goes way back to when I was in high school, and my counselor, suggested that I go on a tour of the Tiburon Lodge, and we had lunch there, and it must have had an influence on where I am today, because I am here today in the hospitality industry. And it's a pretty exciting business. And over the course of those 40 years, we've seen huge amount of change. Today, we cannot do anything without a cell phone, without a laptop, and without a PC. Technology drives our business, regardless of whether you're in the front desk, in sales, or even in housekeeping. The technology is what makes us that much more efficient. And so the hotels that I was involved in, including the major hotels in San Francisco, had a lot more labor force. Today, the labor force is a lot leaner, but requires people to have lots of technology-based skills. And so having that, but also feeling that people are important, and we're in the people business, and connecting with people when they're staying as a guest, connecting with our staff, all those things are very important. More importantly, for us in the hotel business, we need to connect with the other small businesses that define hospitality, restaurateurs, event planners, vacation rentals, gift shops. All these small businesses, particularly if you're in small towns like Sebastopol or Petaluma, having an overnight guest can make the difference of whether you're going to make money that particular day or not. So those are the things that are really important, is that the industry understands and works together.
Kirk, one of my questions a little bit later to you was about the skills and interests that are valuable in the hospitality and tourism industry. And so I appreciate you kind of already queuing that up for me. And so I'm just going to continue there. You had mentioned technology, and Leanna, you had mentioned how you're such a kind of, it's more of a people thing, right? You just that connection with people. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about what are some of those key skills that are needed within the industry, particularly like the more soft skills or the transferable skills that really are good for any industry, but particularly for hospitality and tourism.
Yeah, I mean, I think communication is such a broad, there's so many specific things under communication. And I know that what I learned in, graduate school for counseling, listening is actually a very underrated skill. I think it's the start of communication. So if you can really hone in on listening to somebody who is talking, being able to address those needs and hearing both the direct and the subtle messages coming is going to be a really important skill in any industry. because it's addressing those needs, whether people are stating them directly or subtly. If you can start to really practice listening and comprehending, you're going to be able to have a lot more options to respond. You can choose your response intentionally. And I think people notice that. So whether that's in counseling, whether that's in hospitality, the guests are paying hundreds of dollars for a room. They want to be able to be heard. They want to be able to feel that they're being listened to when they have an issue. A lot of times when guests are demanding something, whether you're in the restaurant industry or the hospitality industry, it's, are you hearing me? Are you even knowing what I'm saying? And so a lot of times their needs are met just by feeling that they're heard. So I think listening is really key. I think that is one, like I said, one of the underrated skills. Being able to, that's like receiving, the listening part, and then giving back, your response is being able to speak and write in a way that's going to be effective, and coming across in a clear way. So whether that's emails to your vendors, whether it's to your guests, whether it's to your partners or your coworkers. A lot of times in the hospitality industry, there's a lot of people management that you're doing. And so being able to speak to those people on a level that they're comfortable with, or email, write letters, those are all very important things. I think one of the things you can do for that skill is I would encourage students to read. Just keep reading, make it a habit every day, find what you're interested into. It doesn't matter so much what you're reading, but I think to find an interest in that is going to be very helpful in a lot of ways. Being able to have an interest and start developing interest in things, cast your net wide. What subjects do you like? Reading is really going to help your writing, and it's going to help your speaking, and it's going to help your comprehension. So that's one thing, if you guys can take away from today, is practice listening and read consistently. Make it a habit right before bed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hearing communication, it sounds like, is one of those real key ones, right? Both with the customer that you're with, or even other employees. And I'm also hearing, when you mention listening, it sounds like it's sort of this empathy thing where you have to connect in a different way with that person. You have to be understanding of that person. And really, especially in the hospitality industry and restaurant industry, I could see why people, when they're there, they want to feel like they are being heard. And I worked in retail, and it was very similar. When you're doing sales, you really have to listen to their needs in order to make sure they get the right product too. I think any of these sort of service-based careers are so critical in teaching those basic but so important skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kirk, is there anything else you wanted to add to the skills discussion before we move on?
Sure. I think that it's really important that we adapt to where the customer is communicating, what kind of tools they're using. So in Marriott now requires us to be able to communicate with our customers by cell phone. So let's say someone's staying in a hotel and they're in the room and they say, I need some extra towels. They get on the cell phone, they communicate with Marriott through the Bonvoy membership and say, I need some extra towels. Our front desk gets a communication from Marriott. Marriott requires them to respond within 15 minutes. If they don't respond back, Marriott then notifies the GM, hey, your people at the front desk aren't working. And so, but then the manager then needs to start acting. And within less than an hour, if the manager doesn't respond, me as owner gets notified that your people aren't doing their job. Okay. And all that communication is top of mind in terms of how do you provide guest satisfaction, make sure that the guest needs are being fulfilled at every moment. And this is going to adapt and it's going to change. There's a QR code. In the last, ever since COVID, people are starting to use QR codes in a whole different adaptive environment. And so we're adapting as an industry to how consumers are heard, how do we communicate with their needs, and how do we provide on-time delivery of those services. And all those things create an environment that requires everyone to be adaptive as the consumer changes. And so, the things like Instagram, even Facebook didn't exist 10 years ago. And yet universally, people are using these tools, to communicate their needs of what they want in the hospitality industry.
Just to point out, when we're talking about technology, it's almost like it still goes back to that communication in a way, but using different means. It's not always necessarily face-to-face. It might be through that cell phone connection that you're talking about.
That's right.
Thank you so much, both of you, for those answers. I think they're really important skills that were mentioned. I do want to take sort of this, I guess, broad step back. Tracy, this question is for you. I'm curious about what the state of tourism is here in the Sonoma County region, and how do you see it changing in the next, say, 5 or 10 years?
Thanks, Brandon. Yes, if you guys had asked me this question, 5 years ago, or even just pre-COVID, the trajectory would have probably looked completely different than what we're at right now. So while I'd love to say I have a crystal ball, I'll just tell you what we're, feeling and looking at right now. I mean, undoubtedly, this has been an unprecedented time for not just Sonoma County, but places all over the country, us in particular as it relates to fire and the pandemic, of course. But currently right now, I mean, after, the mask mandate has been lifted and things like that, we are really seeing things opening back up. Our consumer sentiment shows that people are really anxious, beyond anxious, to get back to traveling. They're celebrating milestones that they've missed and just getting out, for the first time in a long time. And because at Sonoma County Tourism, we are a very research-based organization and entity, meaning that we really rely and utilize numbers and feedback from consumers and our other groups that we get reporting from. Even though we've got those numbers, we're still in a very dynamic situation. I mean, for example, elements around the world, what we're experiencing right now with the situation in Ukraine, we thought that we'd be on a really nice trajectory through the summer. And now we look at how this situation is affecting gas prices. It's affecting people's decision making, not only in their regular day-to-day activities, but how it's going to impact travel. When they would normally drive someplace because they're just, looking to be close to home, now they're going to consider places even closer to home. Or maybe we're going to jump on an airplane that ironically might be cheaper, than if we were to travel, up and down the state. So that's kind of that, where we wish we had that crystal ball impact, so to speak. But as far as the long term, for Sonoma County, it still is a very sought after destination. The reason for our numbers being improved so quickly after this, period of opening up post COVID is because we've been an ideal market for people. We're more rural. We have a lot of outdoor offerings, and this is very appealing to people, especially after being cooped up for so long. They want to not be in close confined spaces. So this is like I said, a real natural desired atmosphere. That being said, the most important thing that we see tourism moving forward in the next immediate, 1 to even 5 to 10 years, like you said, Brandon, is that people love to come to Sonoma County for the outdoors, but we have to find a way to make sure that these outdoors and assets are protected. And that's what we're doing as an organization. We are not just marketing, but we are moving forward as being true stewards of our destination, being very careful in terms of what we, put out from that marketing perspective. And most importantly, it's attracting the responsible traveler. That's going to be the key message that you're going to see over and over again in that next 5 to 10 year period. Attracting people that really care about their destination that they're going to, that the destination they're visiting actually cares about their, environment and their surroundings. And believe it or not, that consumer sentiment is huge. That is one of the top items that travelers are looking at. And what we want to do is make sure that our partners are, geared and armed with that information. And how do we make sure that, someone like Jacob is, understanding what that consumer sentiment wants, and that he and his organization are meeting that need as well. So like I said, that responsible traveling is going to be the big word that you're going to be seeing moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I love how I feel like Sonoma County tourism is sort of that connective tissue between all of the aspects of tourism in this area. So it's so great that we have an organization like that here. Betsy, I'm actually going to move over to you now because I have a question about the really the hospitality, tourism, and culinary programs that the SRJC has. And I also want to connect that to what we heard Leanna and Kirk talk about with those skills. How do those programs help students build some of those key skills that they need to be successful in those industries?
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Brandon. Any employer will tell you that soft skills is really where it's at these days. And we know that. Even we are a college that teaches what you call hard skills or technical skills. But we are adamant about making sure our students are well-versed in understanding the importance of teamwork, and taking initiative, being on time for work, et cetera, et cetera. So we definitely incorporate all of those communication topics and activities in all of our courses. I happen to be the only instructor in the program who is not a chef. I teach the business sides of things. I teach guest service and beverage and wine and things like that. And I talk a lot about career opportunities. And in fact, one of my roles is to connect our students and grads with employers, which I've been doing for a long time. You know, we're unique, though, among culinary programs around the country. We operate our own restaurant and retail bakery, which is open to the public and run entirely by our students and instructors. We're also unique in that our fruits and our veggies are organically grown, and our dairy products and meats come from local farms. And some of you may even know about Schoen Farm, which the college owns, and it's in Forestville. We get lots of our organic produce from them. And we also purchase their award-winning Russian River Valley wines, which we serve in our restaurant. So we're not the kind of culinary school that does the big volume production, cafeteria style culinary program. We started it 25 years ago to be very local, focused on restaurants and focused on Sonoma County. Many of our students complete all 5 of our certificates, which is what we recommend because the food world has so many different parts to it. And it's more fun and certainly beneficial to our students' careers to experience as many parts of food, wine, tourism, hospitality as they can while they're with us. You can complete our baking and pastry certificate, front house operations, dining room service, restaurant management, culinary arts. And what's great for high school students is that you can easily enroll in and complete our first 2 prereq classes while you're still in high school because they're 100% online. We have hands-on cooking classes. We have 5-course food and wine pairing menus. And in our baking class, you're going to fill up our retail bakery showcases with pastries, cookies, and cakes, and even chocolates. We go on field trips to all our local businesses. And you really get a real full dynamic view of the industry because you end up working in our restaurant and our bakery before you leave us. So one last thing, and probably the most important, we can help you find your passion. Because when you come here, you might think you just want to learn how to perfect your baking skills, but maybe you've been your family's chief baker for birthdays and holidays. But then while taking our fun baking classes, you also take our food and beverage careers class. You take our Vietnamese cuisine class. You even take a wine tasting class. And then suddenly you've decided you want to do it all. So you can, because we're here to help you do that.
Thanks, Betsy. You know what I think is so important is once you find that passion, the SRJC still can give you the other experience and training that you need in order to make sure that you are successful in pursuing that passion. So for example, if you had always wanted to be a baker, like you had mentioned, and you wanted to open your own bakery, well, there's more to that than just being a good baker, right? You have to be a good business person, and that's something that the SRJC can really help with. So
yeah, we teach that in our program as well as certainly a great number of business classes as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say to any student who's interested, visit that culinary building at the SRJC. It's absolutely beautiful. So and Schoen Farm, really beautiful. So Jacob, I'm going to you next. I haven't forgot about you. Really, we just talked about some of the education path kind of leading up to, say, the restaurant industry, but I really want to focus a little bit deeper on the restaurant industry, because a lot of the students right now, having just, I don't even want to say gone through COVID, they're still going through COVID, right? I mean, things are getting a little bit better, and we've all seen the restaurants shut down. And so there is a worry out there in the world with students who might want to get a restaurant job, especially they're such great, stepping stones too into anything else, and they teach those critical skills. But that worry is still there about what kind of jobs are available. So can you talk about how the pandemic has impacted the restaurant industry, but also are things getting better now that things are starting to open up?
Great, thank you. Yeah, when the pandemic hit, it really shifted where the experience took place, where it was normally at a table inside the restaurant with 4 to 6 of your friends or whatever. That went away really with the start of the pandemic, and everybody from full service restaurants to countertop, you order at the counters, quick service restaurants to, models like ours where we had a delivery model already built in. Everybody had to shift to takeout and delivery. And so there was this big adaptability, or this big adaption, if you will, to try and meet the urgent need that the pandemic required. And the guests adapted as well. Our customers adapted as well. They expected things to be done at the curbside, done online, done on their phones. And as the pandemic shifted and things would either open up a little bit or, would vary time to time, those experiences it changed as well. And at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of sympathy and a lot of just support and understanding and patience from guests. But over time, as fatigue with the pandemic increased, guest expectations increased as well. We're no longer, for instance, going to be okay with an hour and a half wait for delivery because you're short-staffed. We still expect it to be within that 45-minute to an hour window for delivery. And so as we're navigating these challenges and these changes with regulations, we're still also having to meet the fast-paced requirements of our guests. And I think that is both a challenge, but it's also exciting because the technology that we've had to adapt and utilize has enabled us to meet those challenges along the way. And there's still opportunity for people to come in and because at the end of the day, our guests still long for connection with one another and interaction and personality and personal connection. And so if you are someone that is passionate about those quote unquote soft skills and can really empathize with the guests while meeting them at the pace of their expectations, the sky's the limit in the restaurant industry. It's not going anywhere because I think people still long for that table, breaking bread at the table, whether it's virtually or in person. And I think the restaurant industry really fills that need, that inner need.
Would you say that right now is a good time for people to enter the restaurant industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if there's ever a time when the industry is still adapting, still changing, and still growing in different ways than it has in the past, this is it, really, especially for a new generation of potential employees. I think there's so many skills to learn and so many needs that the restaurant industry fills that if you're passionate about, delivering experiences to your friends, to your family, to your neighborhood, this is the time because everybody's longing for it. And the restaurant is where that occurs.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know just from family and friends who work in the restaurant industry, there's a high need right now for employees that have some of those basic soft skills that Kirk and Leanna were talking about. So Tracy, I'm going to move back to you. And this will be probably our last question, and then we'll get into our student questions. So I'll say right now, students, feel free to start throwing your questions in the Q&A. But Tracy, I do want to ask you, we're hearing about hotels and restaurants. Can you just briefly talk about how some of the other kinds of hospitality and tourism careers that students may consider as they're joining the workforce, how do they all work together? Like, what does this whole thing look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because hearing each of the panelists and And it's, Jacob really climbed that ladder. He started at one place and he's went up. And so varying different levels of opportunities in hospitality. And that was just in the restaurant sector. Leanna started one place, but then she said, I'm not feeling that connection. I need to be with people. So she was able to venture into something else. So that right there. And then Betsy just, completely, because she found her love in the hospitality industry. So the sky really is the limit. And just to give you guys a perspective to understand how many really opportunities there are in Sonoma County in terms of tourism and hospitality. Before COVID, 1 in every 10 jobs in Sonoma County connected with something related to hospitality or tourism. And so we're talking everything from restaurant, coffee shops, museum, regional parks, wineries, hotels. I mean, that's just an inkling of the areas in which it covers. So I want to take it for an example. We've got the front of house, right? Which, we mostly associate with maybe hotel and, a concierge or front desk. But, that can lead up to, marketing, directors of sales, GM, hotel management. From a restaurant perspective, maybe we associate that with some things heart of house or behind the scenes, like a sous chef or a dishwasher. But, you can become into same things, director of food and beverage, a sous chef, an actual chef. So there's a lot of different ladders that you can go up. Wine clubs, just like Jacob talked about, all these businesses had to really pivot. So we can get, into, that market right now. Maybe you start in the tasting room, you elevate to a manager, a wine club manager, marketing, there's just so many different opportunities. And one thing that you just mentioned, Brandon, that I want to touch on is, for an example, this is how you marry some of the two. Not that Betsy doesn't love cooking, like she said, but she really loves teaching. Well, maybe you've been taking cooking classes and you love cooking, but your bigger love might be, let's say, photography, and you really like the marketing aspects of things. You can really marry those two. And now you've just elevated yourself into a completely different level of marketing for a restaurant, marketing for a winery, connecting those with social media, which, all of, you guys young in this age, I mean, this is right up your alley. So really just get out of the box and think about all of these different opportunities and where that can take you in this vast industry.
Great point. A lot of people, when they think about hospitality careers, they think about the ones that they see, right? The people at the front desk, the people serving them at the restaurant. But there are so many other people behind the scenes making those businesses run, like Jacob here in marketing, for example. So thank you. Stacy.
Yeah, there's also some of the other industries that a lot of people think about. There's a lot of people now in real estate, whether it's in, and they focus with an expertise in lodging, others that focus on restaurant sales and resales, franchises. Franchises are huge in food and beverage. Then you have the purveyors. We have all these big trucks rolling up and down the highways and delivering goods and services to our industry. And, those are really important, critical components of our success. We cannot do without those vendors. Then you have the people in insurance, legal. There's so many people that are experts in servicing our industry's needs. So there's a huge gamut of opportunities for young people. The important thing is that we end up in our industry being the first job that most high school kids get. And it might be a great experience, it might be a bad experience. Either way, you learn something about yourself, what you'd like to do, what you don't like to do. And that becomes a stepping stone to where you go eventually. And ultimately, we want all of our young people to be happy. Okay, happy with your decision where you want to go, but you're not going to know until you actually explore and look at this opportunity in our industry as an opportunity for you to learn about yourself.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kurt, for tying that all together. Really appreciate that. Stacy, thank you for hopping on. I'm going to ask you to read out some of those student questions that you've seen come through that you think are some of the best ones to ask of our panelists.
Well, first off, thank you everyone for sharing such valuable advice and wisdom. And I just want to talk about, we once had the CEO of Clover Stornetta tell us that the first thing that he looks for when interviewing a potential hire is whether the applicant has worked in a restaurant, because he feels like that is the best experience for any future position. Who would like to speak on that? Perhaps Jacob?
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Jacob. I'll go after you.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. Yeah, I mean, the restaurant industry, there's so many things that happen during a Friday night dinner rush, whether it's, managing the satisfaction of guests at the table, what's going on in the kitchen, in the multiple different sections that are going on. There's like a constant workflow that's happening, and it works like clockwork. And making it work, that in of itself takes its own level of problem solving and critical thinking. So yes, absolutely. One of the most key things that employers look for is experiences in restaurants, because there's so many different facets. There's so many different things happening at one time, that if you can show that you can not only survive it, right, but can really thrive in that environment, you really stand out amongst anyone else that may be applying for a certain type of job. Betsy?
Yeah, it's just a great way of saying on your resume or in your interview that I'm a multitasker. When an employer can see all the different tasks that you might have accomplished, which I think is one of the reasons why I see a lot of my colleagues in the industry doing cross training. So, we're getting away as much as we can. I think it's a good idea from this back of the house versus front of the house. In this climate that we're going to be in for a long time, it's a new world of work with technology, as we talked about, but also because people want to feel like they have meaningful work. That's really why we go to work. And when we can redesign restaurants, which is happening as we speak, to have the front of the house and the back of the house be more of team players together, it's like, the sum of the parts, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, whatever that phrase is. But it really is important, and it shows a prospective employer that you are a team player and you understand your importance to being a good contributor to that business.
Thank you. Another question is, how do we convince Sonoma County students that they can actually pursue a career in hospitality in Sonoma County and still afford to live here? Who would like to answer that one?
Probably be good for Kirk or Leanna.
We recognize that affordability, there's actually two critical issues in my mind that the industry needs to address. One is workforce housing, and the other one is universal healthcare. And both of those have critical components in terms of how a person can afford to live, whether it's in Sonoma County or anywhere else in the United States. These issues, are local, and they're also nationwide. And you're finding that healthcare as well as workforce housing are issues pretty much throughout the United States. People say that we have people that want to move to Arizona because it is a lot more affordable. But now they're finding that California is moving to Arizona is also pushing the prices up in Arizona also. So, it's the best thing about the hospitality industry is that it's very adaptive. You can go anywhere in the world, and if you have experience, in hospitality, especially in customer service, you're gonna get a job. Okay, and that's how a lot of college students, go through, whether they're going to school in California or anywhere in the world. They can easily get a job because they have that experience. And look at hospitality as a stepping stone. Okay, you might stay in the industry, you might not, but it becomes an opportunity for you to dive into what's the opportunities that will make you happy as an individual and pursue it. And we're there to provide an opportunity for you to expand your personal horizons.
Can I just add real quickly? I know we're at time, but I just want to add real quickly what's very key if you're wondering, okay, how do I survive and live in Sonoma County where everything is very expensive? What I would very much recommend is, as you're going through college or as you're going through your career, create like personal portfolios or milestones on your own behalf to show what you've done, not just titles that you've had or roles that you've had, but really accomplishments that you've done so that you can take that. Every employer is responsible to make sure that we're adapting to, the times and, adapting to things like minimum wage increases and what have you. But you yourself, make sure that you arm yourself with a portfolio and a showcase of what value you've brought to the places that you've done so that you can take it to new opportunities that will, whether it's in a particular company or industry or what have you, you want to make sure that you got the track record to show that your value is always on the rise. And that's what I would personally recommend is you're navigating your career development.
Well, thank you very much. I think we're just about at the end of our session. Are we correct? But just as we close, perhaps we can go around and just quickly have each of our panelists name one soft skill. I hear that a lot, soft skills, whether that's communication, honesty, just leave the students with elaborate more on that. We don't actually why don't we just name it? Name the one soft.
One word.
Yeah, one word, if you wouldn't mind. And I'm just going to start at the top of my screen. Tracy?
Integrity.
Yeah, thank you. Jacob?
Empathy.
Interesting. Betsy?
Well, Jacob stole my empathy, but I'll say something a little maybe off the wall, but learning how to make eye contact with people.
Okay. Good, thank you. Leanna?
I'm going to go with courage. Don't be afraid to try new things and make mistakes.
Nice. And Kirk?
Self-respect. I think it's important that as you move through your life, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I made the right decision.
Yeah.
Can I add one too, Stacy?
Yes, Brandon.
And this comes from Guy Fieri, who we just did an interview with a couple of days ago, and he said manners.
Manners.
I mean, it fits into communications, but just you have to have manners and respect when you are communicating. He thought that was very important.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate you taking your time. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for having us.
For the students that are watching, at I believe 11:15, from 11:15 to noon, there will be a workshop right after this. It's called Get Out There, How Serving Your Community Can Jumpstart Career Development. So tune into that one. That's coming up right in just a little bit. All right, thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.